welcome to Transforming Society through Social Media, #SocialPT. Should be a very exciting, interesting, and thought-provoking session. A couple of housekeeping things, I'm sure you've heard a bunch, but you know, I think we got plenty of seats if people come in, but should it get overcrowded, we may need people to scooch in so other folks can join in on the outskirts and feel less intrusive. Thank you in advance for your help. All session evaluations should be available via the mobile app. I know we've had some trouble with the app in general and some less user-friendly things, but the evaluation should be available. If they're not, please see one of the APTA Red Sweater Meetings folks or grab me or somebody else. We can try to address the needs. If you have trouble with it, like I said, the APTA information desk downstairs. Evaluations can also be completed online via the APTA website. Your feedback, of course, is super important in order to ensure the continued success of combined section meetings and for the APTA to meet the requirements as a CEU provider. If you did not scan your badge prior to entering the room, which I'm sure most people did, you can scan it up to the last 20 minutes of the session. To get credit, student volunteers are going to be hanging out for at least 20 more minutes, assisting if you need help, all the way through Saturday. If you forgot to scan your badge, you can get your transcript adjusted after the conference via the APTA Learning Center. Instructions will be mailed out to all registered conference attendees after CSM. Handouts should be available online, of course, at www.apta.org/CSM. For anybody that was in the do-it-yourself simulation session this morning at 8 o'clock, I know that Dr. Fairburn's slides were not uploaded onto the website. We're working on correcting that shortly. And they will continue to be available after the conference through August 18th of this year. The password for the handouts is San Antonio, all small case, 2017. Please note that not all speakers have submitted handouts even yet, and therefore are not available. But Carl's is our issue, not his. He did submit that. Please make sure all cell phones are off, or muted, so the session isn't disrupted. No video or audio recording. Okay. Well, things are going on. That's everybody except me. I didn't get that either. If you have any unique needs or require special accommodations, please let me know so I can help. Of course, make sure you visit the exhibit hall. That's a major plug. You'll find a wide variety of physical therapy products and services. Hall is located obviously downstairs. Finally, I'd like to encourage you all to stop by our section booth, cardiovascular and pulmonary section booth, before the exhibit hall closes later today. So now, I'd like to introduce our illustrious panel. First of all, I'd like to introduce Brett Kestenbaum, EPT, who's a 2014 graduate of Nova Southeastern University in Florida, and co-founder of the newgradphysicaltherapy.com and covalentcareers.com, a company that helps new graduates transition from student to practitioner. Awesome, that's cool. Brett's focus is improving the process for staffing healthcare towards the ultimate goal of on-demand employment. Greg Dodd, which Greg? There he is, Greg, is a co-owner of Renewal Rehabilitation, 2 private practice clinics in the Tampa Bay area for the past 12 years. Greg now serves as a consultant for 18 and counting medical and technology companies, and has lectured at numerous seminars on his innovative business and technology strategies that he's used throughout his successful 16-year career. Rich Severn here is a cardiovascular and pulmonary specialist physical therapist based at the University of Illinois at Chicago. He is currently pursuing his PhD in rehabilitation science with a focus on cardiorespiratory physiology. He serves as adjunct faculty at the Doctor of Physical Therapy programs at both UIC and South College, and is contracted faculty member through Evidence in Motion. Ben Fung is COO and co-founder of UpDoc Media. He's a physical therapist and digital media producer with a passion for helping physical therapy colleagues win from the career level to enterprise and as a profession at large. And the panel has no conflicts of interest. So without further ado, I will step down. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody.
Just want to say welcome, guys. There's still a few seats over there if you guys want to fill in over there. It's fine. So again, our talk is Transforming Society through Social Media, or #SocialPT. Sort of a preface, please tweet, Facebook Live, take pictures of this talk. We love to get this out. We have a stream going here now, and kind of the overarching theme of this talk is the impact we can have as a profession broadly through our actions through social media. So I encourage you to tweet, Facebook post, Instagram, Snapchat, Vine if you want to, and we'll get this going. All right? So, some objectives. Probably some of my UIC students and staff students here probably laughing because I always start lectures with objectives. Typical Rich. So we'll go over the history and demographics of social media usage. And Brett will talk a bit about the utility for an entry-level clinician or new grad. Greg will talk about from the perspective of a private practice owner and how you can influence practice and health and physical therapy in your community. I'll talk from the perspective of an academic and researcher. That's more where I am at now. And Ben, of course, will talk as an influencer of clinical practice and business. And we're hoping to have a large portion at the end for you guys that ask questions. We really want this to be an open format. It should be a lot of fun. Just before we start, I did want to acknowledge just some of the interactions I've had with some of these guys on this panel here and kind of what led to this talk. Back in 2012, Greg Todd gave a really, really great speech at the University of Miami, where as a physical therapy student kind of led me down this path of PT Reviewer and the website now, and has opened a lot of doors for me. So that talk there really kind of inspired me, and hopefully this talk here will inspire some of you guys to do the same, and likewise. Ben, I saw pretty much everywhere in every single blog, on every Facebook post. You guys have probably seen him now, your students on the page. The old running line we had between ourselves of Ben has a blog post for everything, and if he didn't, within like 45 minutes he'd have one. I think it's incredible. And now he's Uptalk Media. He and Gene and Joe, the guys are doing incredible things. And Brett was one of the first people I did a podcast with. I think what was our
APTA. Leadership.
Yes, we have leadership. And we talked a little bit about vitals in there too. Potentially, right? Yeah, what a surprise. All right. So we'll get to some of the history then. So as you guys are all probably fairly aware, how many of you guys have a social media account? All right, good. All right. So might be preaching to the choir a bit here, but as you all know, social media usage has continuously increased, and this is a Pew Foundation data. About 80% of individuals now have at least one account. Now, that could be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. It all started back really, technically started in 2002 with LinkedIn, which was one of the first really kind of big accounts. Well, MySpace, but I guess we don't really use that anymore. I don't think anyone uses that anymore. But anyway, I'm not talking about MySpace. Well, Facebook was really the big platform. That started in 2004 when I was in college. Now it's gradually increased. We've had a couple big bursts around 2010 where we saw Snapchat, we saw Instagram, we saw Pinterest all kind of come onto the market, and Vine kind of got big around then as well. So as you can see, it's the criticism against it was that it was a passing, craze, and it clearly is not. Okay. And this to show you that it's not just something that millennials use or younger individuals use. There's a large portion of older adults, middle-aged adults that use it as well, and those numbers are increasing as well. The old adage again, millennials, or which I am, are always stuck looking at their phone. What does this mean here? Well, I mean, how many can think of my grandmother or my mother are probably on their phone and on Facebook more than I am? But think about it conceptually, that's a lot of our patients as well. So we'll talk a bit about why there's maybe a bit of a gap in how we can influence and insert ourselves here to drive practice and to improve the healthcare system. And again, just showing that the trends in smartphone usage, which reflects usage of apps, which most social media accounts utilize. So not only are people using these more and more, social media is driving industry in many respects with the use of smartphones, increasing in MP3 players and game consoles beginning to decrease. And this just shows the frequencies of different platforms. Facebook, of course, probably the most common one. Most people have one of those. Instagram, close or second, followed by Twitter. It just shows the daily versus weekly versus less often usages. But Facebook probably are one of our most more preeminent platforms. And this just demonstrates that many individuals have at least one account, but many people have multiple accounts. And if you're like any of these guys on this panel, we probably have every account. So, I mean, how many of you guys have a Facebook and a Twitter, or a Facebook and an Instagram? Yeah, pretty much everybody. So, and that's increasing over time, and it's shown across different age groups. So now we're getting down to the kind of the meat and potatoes here about why this is important, and particularly with physical therapy. 59% of adults have looked online for health-related information this past year. This is from the Pew Foundation. This is more broadly with respect to the internet, but including social media within that. And then 35% of those are diagnosing themselves from things they encounter online. But I think what stands out probably the most are these factors here, that people are using peer-to-peer interactions to discuss their healthcare, where they receive healthcare, what they're receiving, and their stories. It speaks to the fact that if you really want to transform society, you kind of have to go where society is. And right now, it's the internet. And how many of you guys have looked on the Facebook comment section on a page and seen people talking, well, I have low back pain for 30 years, and I went and saw Dr. XYZ, and he did this for me. I mean, I scour social media all the time, and I can think of countless examples of this. And this is somewhere we really need to insert ourselves within, across multiple different levels. Okay, and it just shows you again the usage of the internet, looking at specific disease problems, talking about ways to lose weight, drugs, safeties, all things pertaining to health. People are using the internet and using social media in particular to find answers to these things. So there's definitely a need for this. And again, just some figures. They're demonstrating it's across genders, it's across different age groups. So again, it's a big market, but a huge audience of individuals looking for help and looking through help through the internet, through social media, and that's something we could really meet people at. And again, as an influencer of social policy, how many of you guys have participated in National Physical Therapy Month by posting things, or flash action strategies, or stopping the therapy cap? These are huge. See Jerry raising his hand, absolutely. But these are things that have been successful, and it's through our actions, raising awareness publicly about why it's important for patients to receive our services, how we can help people. And again, this is something we can all do collectively. We are all our profession's keepers. We all have to be buying in here to move our profession forward to where we need it to go. And I think that's personified by the Choose PT campaign. I mean, I think our profession is really starting to get with it. Like, we need to go where people are going if we want to influence the community. Okay. So again, just wrapping up our introduction, the vision statement, of course, transforming society by optimizing movement to improve the human experience. If you break down those three cogs here, that in many respects, society, movement, and human experience tie into the whole concept of social media. And we can influence policy, we can influence the community to optimize the human experience for our patients, both locally and broadly. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brett. He'll talk to you guys a bit about what you guys can do early on in your career as far as leveraging social media and technology.
I'm going to come join you guys down here. Can everybody hear me in the back? Everything's working? So as Rich just pointed out, social media usage has been booming since the turn of the century. And that's meant opportunity for anyone who's been willing to seize it. Social media is just really your microphone to the world. Rich, Ben, Greg, and I are all here today because we picked up that microphone years and years ago. And eventually, people started listening. There's no difference between us and any of you. The only difference is that we picked up the microphone first. What I'm going to present to you today is the journey that I took to get here, my pitfalls along the way, and then I'll provide you with tools and resources that you can use to help you achieve any goals of any magnitude that you want in your life and in your career. So physical therapy school for me was a dream, as in I was sleeping most of the time. And when I was awake, I wasn't really taking actions to build a foundation for my career. I was really just doing the bare minimum to get to graduation. My thought was always, well, everybody graduates, and then everybody has a career, and we all start on an equal playing field. And that's not a mindset that I would recommend having, because there's a lot of differences between someone who does that and someone who takes action within their time of physical therapy school. So during clinicals, I got one thing right, and that was developing good relationships with my CIs and with the departments. But I didn't go home and learn the skills that are needed to treat your patients, like how to look things up when you have complicated cases. I always just relied on my CI to pretty much spoon feed me the answers. And again, that's going to have implications down the road in your career, especially in that first year. Conferences, so I attended conferences and went with my entire class. But at the conferences, I really didn't get much accomplished. I didn't meet people like Alex and like Rush and Kevin, introducing yourself to a lot of people out there to really start making connections. Again, not something I recommend, because it's going to make it so that you have more of a difficult time down the road. Outside of class, even in undergrad, I always had this thought that I would just figure things out when I was done with school. And when I graduated undergrad, I thought I'd figure things out when I was done. Then I didn't really have a path when I graduated. So I decided to go to PT school eventually. When I was in grad school for PT, same thing like I've been describing. Didn't really start thinking about my career till I was done. And that led to a lot of difficulties down the road. But I did eventually graduate like everybody else. Now for me, when the NPTE was coming up, I felt lost. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to register for the exam, let alone study for it. And I almost missed the registration date for the New York exam. And we all know that the exam's only given 4 times per year, so if I missed July, that would have meant October. And that would have meant I would have seen my bank account get lower and lower and lower and lower over those years, over those months, because I wouldn't have had a job. When it came to finding a job, I didn't do a very good job at that either. I had a resume that was mediocre at best. I'd never practiced my interview skills ever. I, over the course of 2 months, applied for about 20 jobs. Most of them I didn't really want. I just found them somewhere and applied for them. And interviewed for about 3 of them. Got 0 because my interview skills were so bad. But like I was referring to before about my clinicals, I had established good relationships with my CIs and with the departments there. So in a last-ditch effort, I reached out to all my CIs, and fortunately, there was a job open at Scripps Mercy. Someone had just recently left to go start doing travel therapy. And my reputation with them was very good, so I was able to get that job. And without that, I honestly have no idea what I would have done. But good thing for luck in the world. So year 1 for me looked kind of like this prickly cactus. It was not an open road, and it had a lot of pitfalls along the way. But there was a point that I realized that I just needed to start doing things different, and I needed to start taking actions toward the future rather than just thinking about what's going on today. And I had ran into a friend of mine out in San Diego, who is now my partner in those businesses that were described earlier. And what he said to me was very interesting. He said, Brett, he's like, just start doing something. Just start doing anything, and you'll gain momentum over time. And he pointed me towards social media. So I created my social media accounts, and I was extremely nervous about posting. I'm sure, or I'm not sure, but many of you may feel the same way, that if you start posting, people won't like your opinion, or they'll laugh at you, or something terrible is going to happen. But that's not a reality. The reality is if someone doesn't like what you're saying, they're going to scroll through it within milliseconds. If they do like what you're saying, they may share it with their peers, and you'll start seeing things happen. All of that led to the start of 2 companies. NewGradPhysicalTherapy.com, which is now the largest resource for students and physical therapists. Cameron's been involved with that as well, and so has Kevin. And Covalent Careers, which is a technology that we developed, which the goal of that is to create on-demand employment for all healthcare providers. So there's a different way to do things, and what I would recommend here is the same thing that my friend said to me, which is start doing stuff early. As early as today would be my recommendation. So now what I want to present to you is another way of doing things, and I want to take it all the way back to physical therapy school. Now there's two components to physical therapy school that will never change. The first is that most people will be sleeping their way through class. It's a constant. And the second is that when you're not sleeping, there's going to be all sorts of nonsense going on. That if you told your business school friends or your law school friends, they wouldn't even be able to imagine it. But when that's not going on, what I would recommend is, all of you have said that you have them, but create those social media accounts. Start following people that you're interested in. Start following subjects that you're interested in. And really just start getting involved. And you can take it slow, but it's building momentum and it's building the courage to put yourself out there that's important. One thing that you can do that helped me is create a Facebook group for your class. Creating a Facebook group for your class, especially in my class, it helped me greatly because I never knew when my tests were. I never knew what my projects were due. I never knew what the subjects were. But unfortunately, people would post it in the Facebook groups, and then I'd figure it out eventually. Networking. Twitter is the best place to network as a physical therapist. A great person to follow on Twitter, obviously Ben. He does a fantastic job, and Rich, and Greg. They all do a fantastic job. Follow them. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're talking about. Look at how they engage people. And then eventually start engaging people on your own. You never know what's going to happen when you just start talking to people through social media. You never know who you're going to meet. A lot of us are here today because of that as well. Another great thing to do is start writing. Easiest way to get started writing is through LinkedIn or Medium. They make it extremely easy. All you need to do is create an account, and then you can start writing, and they'll even provide you with a group of people who are looking to read the content that you create. When you start writing, you're also going to need a graphic for your posts. So Adobe Spark is a great way to do this. Adobe Spark allows you to either search for or upload images. I actually got this image off of Unsplash, another great website if you want very high quality images for free. Adobe Spark lets you add text to a file. You can shape the text. You can use different graphical images for that text as well, and you can create that. I created that in about a minute. Grammarly is also another fantastic tool. Grammarly will help, as you might know, or as you might be witnessing, my grammar is not the greatest. So I rely on Grammarly to help change my sentence structure so everything reads better, and it also will correct your spelling as well. Another good thing to do, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur or ever start a business or create some passive income in your life, is start a website. A good way to get started there is on WordPress.com. And then something advanced, you can go to themeforest.net and download themes that will make your website look a lot better. You can download themes for anything from a one-pager to if you want to sell something in an online shop, or if you want to have a blog format, themeforest.net will help you with that. If you want to learn how to use WordPress, just go to YouTube and type in how to start a WordPress website, and you'll get tons of resources of people who made videos showing you exactly what to do to get started. I added one link for you there. That article on the bottom there is Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans, and that's a concept where all you need is 1,000 true fans to start any business. If you think about it, 1,000 people that pay you $100 per year for anything that you do is $100,000 a year. That's a great business for anyone. You don't have to think about getting 1 million followers and 1 million fans. It's not going to happen, or the likelihood of it happening is extremely low. But developing 1,000 true fans you can do over the span of 2 or 3 years, and anybody can do it. So what else can you do with a website? You can write an ebook, and you can market it through your website. So I wrote an ebook, How to Land Your First Physical Therapy Job After Grad School. And with any ebook, you need a graphic. If you try to find a graphic designer, this could cost you anywhere from $150 to $250 to get a graphic made up. Or you can go on freelancer.com. You can post your project, and within minutes, you'll have thousands of people bidding to do your project. I got that graphic done for $18. Another great thing to do, start a podcast. When I started my podcast, I didn't know anything about audio. I didn't know anything about podcasts, but I searched Google for how to start a podcast. And I came across this great resource, Smart Passive Income Blog. If you go there, you can find all sorts of great information on how to start a podcast. It's actually really easy, and it's a lot of fun. to do some of the audio stuff. If you have a Mac, you can use GarageBand, and you can get started really easily. This picture is actually from the podcast that Rich was just talking about. I had put on Twitter. I had said, hey, does anyone want to do a podcast episode with me? And Rich jumped at the opportunity, and we had a great time, and we've had a great relationship ever since. So clinicals. Clinicals are going to look a lot different for you because you're going to take other actions to make it so that when you get out into practice, you have a much easier time than that prickly cactus that my career has looked like. So one thing you're going to try to do is crowdsource ideas. Crowdsourcing is basically just the concept that you can ask a question and you can get 1,000 responses. So a good thing to do if you have a challenging patient is to ask the question in a group. Doctor of Physical Therapy Students group on Facebook has 27,000 members, and everybody's very active there. So if you just post a question about a patient in that group, you'll get responses about either maybe some things that you can think about for that patient, or people might provide you with resources about what to do for, or where to find information for that patient as well. Conferences. So conferences are going to look a lot different for you. They're not going to look like what I did. They're going to look like what Kevin and Alex and Rush did. You're going to go up to people. You're going to meet people. And if you go with your class, I would recommend breaking off into groups of either just you going around or go around with just one other friend, because this will be a lot easier to meet people in that way. You're going to meet a lot of people. And one of the most important concepts, and actually me and Greg were talking about this earlier, is following up. No one follows up. You meet someone and then you never follow up with them, and that relationship is over. But if you follow up, you'll be in that 1% or probably 0.01% of people who do follow up, and you'll form a good relationship with whoever it is. Simplest concept, nobody does it. So how do you manage all this? Well, you want to use a relationship management software, and this is the easiest one available. This is called Trello. Trello allows you to create these columns and then create cards within them. So you can create these columns and make them say whatever you want. You can make the first one say contacts, and then you can make the cards, each card is a contact. Then you can move it to the next column that'll say sent email or did phone call or whatever it is, and you can move those cards across so that you know who you've contacted. The easiest thing to do is take the business cards out of your pocket after the conference, put them all into the Trello board, and you can manage your relationships that way. Another great tool is Calendly. Go to Calendly and you can create yourself an account where you can give out your Calendly link and people can schedule appointments with you, and then they'll end up right in your Google Calendar or iCalendar or whatever you use. If anybody has questions about this or you want to schedule some time to chat with me, just go to calendly.com/Brett Kestenbaum and you can schedule some time. Just think about the difference if I had to go around this room and talk to everybody and say, okay, when are you available next week? I don't know. When are you available? That would take forever. Now you can just go there and it'll be done in 2 seconds. So outside of the classroom, the things that you do outside of the classroom are going to look a lot different than what I did. You are going to seek knowledge. There's a lot of great blogs and books and podcasts and audio series for you. NewGradPhysicalTherapy.com if you want any information about careers or how to transition from student to practitioner. UpDoc Media has a ton of great content on business and marketing and branding yourself. 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. That's pretty much the Bible to how to create passive income online. And Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. Fantastic book on marketing. It describes the concept of giving, 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 and always giving more than you receive. And eventually, after you give a lot, you can ask for something. Audible books. So Audible is the biggest learning hack there is. Download Audible, you can download books, and you can learn while you brush your teeth, or while you ride your bike, or while you walk to class, or while you do almost anything. I could probably be listening to Audible books right now while I'm talking to you, but that might just be rude. So Linchpin by Seth Godin is one of my favorite books. Seth Godin describes how to become indispensable as an employee. He also talks about the limbic system and fear and how to overcome those fears. The Art of Learning is probably my favorite book. I've probably listened to it maybe 7 times, but it is the process of learning and mastering any skill. Really fantastic. I recommend the audiobook because he actually does the audio himself, and he does a great job there. Therapy Insiders, Ian, this is his podcast. He interviews both PTs and non-PTs and does an extremely great job putting that together. And then The Moment with Brian Koppelman. Brian interviews celebrities and successful people, and he really goes over that moment when they felt that they transitioned into a successful person. It's a fantastic podcast. So graduation. Everybody, no matter what route you take, you're all going to end up at graduation, or likely, most people. But the road ahead is going to look a lot different for you because you have laid the foundation for your career, and you've laid the path for what's going to come next. So you know that there's resources out there that'll show you how to register for the board exam in all 50 states. And you will create a Slack group, and you can invite people here, and now you have a study group. Because you've met all these new people, you have a lot more people to study with, and you can create different channels for different topics. So you can create an orthopedics channel, a pediatrics channel, a questions channel. Really great way to organize all that information. So finding a job is also going to look a lot different for you. I would recommend starting with mentorship in your first year. Again, that's going to help remove that whole prickly cactus thing and pave the road for you, because the people who have been out 1, 2, 3 years, they've already made all the mistakes. So they know what's going to come, and they can guide you and teach you. A great company that has a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of smaller companies. Greg's practice has mentorship. Fox Rehab's another good one. There's a lot of great companies out there that have mentorship, so look for those. But also, your network's going to look a lot different because you've been on Twitter. And as we discussed here, you know, I connected with Ben through Twitter, and Greg through, and then I connected actually with Rich through Twitter as well, and they connected me with Greg. So that's what happens. A chain of events happens, and you know more and more people over time, and then you're going to ask these people, hey, does anybody know of any job opportunities with mentorship? And probably something will come back through the grapevine, and it will find you, because these people also know that you take action, and that you are one of the top PTs out there graduating. So another great thing that you're going to do, because you do more than everybody else, especially if you're going to apply for a private practice or you want one of the top jobs in the country, you're going to create a business plan. And that business plan is going to go over how you as an individual is going to make the business more money. Why does this business want to hire you? A lot of times the private practice owners obviously have to consider finance as one of the key things that they look for. So a business plan is great. If you do this, your resume is going to stick out like a sore thumb. I know Greg would hire you if you came to his practice with a business plan, and he might even open up another one just for you. Don't quote me on it. Talk to you. So far we've gone over what a not so clear path can look like for you. We've gone over what not to do in physical therapy school, which is, I mean, most likely you're going to be sleeping, but when you wake up, you want to start taking action. We went over Facebook groups. We went over Calendly and networking. We also went over utilizing LinkedIn and Medium to get yourself started writing. And we also went over Adobe Spark to create the graphics for those posts. And doing these things is going to create this clear road for you for year one and for your future. Now I want to leave you guys with a quote, and it's a quote from Abraham Lincoln that's going to sum it all up for you. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. You're going to have to face these realities, that there's more to do in your career, and there's more to do to get where you want to be in life. And eventually you're going to have to start doing stuff. And success is built upon momentum and continuous action. So start taking action today. Thank you. This is the awkward handoff.
Did you button me up? Yeah, actually I wanted to, the first slide that I had here. What's up, y'all? Everybody good? Everybody good? Okay. So the first slide that I want to talk about is Vision 2030, the amended version of Vision 2020. And guys, we got to talk about this because The APTA kind of had this thing figured out from the get-go, okay? There's many parts of Vision 2020, right? And one of the parts is innovation. So I actually have it here. We're going to talk about the innovation part. Here's what it says in Vision 2020 and even the amended version as we move to 2030. In clinical practice, collaboration with developers, engineers, and social entrepreneurs will capitalize on the technological savvy of the consumer and extend the reach of the physical therapist beyond traditional patient-client therapist settings. Innovation in education will enhance interprofessional learning, address workforce needs, respond to declining higher education funding, and anticipating the changing way adults learn. The changing way adults learn. You hear me? Listen, okay. We're going to foster new educational models and delivery methods. They said it, I did it. Right? Okay. So, integrating technology with patient communication. I think what I want to do is I just want to share with you guys today how I've done it. Okay? 16 years I've been a PT, 12 years I've been a practice owner. The last 4 years, our practice has generated over 7 figures annually. I no longer work within a practice. Let me just keep it real with y'all, okay? This is how I've done it. I've integrated technology with patient communication. I'm only one guy. I can only see so many patients, right? I mean, I can only do so much. So how was I able to clone myself? I did this. APTA told me, I listened. Collaborate with social entrepreneurs. Okay, so this is a big thing. We need to collaborate. You know, I believe in our profession, we're a kind bunch of people, but I don't see enough collaboration. I don't. Over the last 10 months, I've been a mentor to quite a few of you. Raise your hand if I've mentored you in some way. Okay, all right. So, I've been able to generate another 6-figure income as a mentor in 10 months because I've collaborated with social entrepreneurs. Meaning that I understand I can't do this by myself. This guy, and really, especially this guy too. All right, these guys have helped me. We have collaborated. So here, what if, okay, everybody's got a Facebook account, right? Okay. What if everything, like let's just say one time a week, all right? I talked to somebody, where's April Fahar? Wait, where's she? Okay. All right, okay, so, no. I came up with this idea, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're gonna make you a group of 12, right? Because people don't know what the hell physical therapy is, let's face it, right? And if you 12 just said, okay, one time a week, you're gonna go on Facebook and you are going to put some type of content out, but we're gonna get 11 of you to share that. That's called collaboration. That's called, I just extended my reach times 11 at least. Make sense? All right. Extending our communication beyond the traditional approach. So what I kind of talked about with regards to the Vision 2020 stuff that they had within the APTA vision is that adults learn differently. Like right now, you're doing this on Facebook Live. Hey y'all, what's up? Okay, like people can listen in. We have live. People can listen and they can absorb content. Just like how you are in a room with a patient, right? And they are listening to your knowledge of how you are directing them on their care. You don't always have to do it in person. Again, it's just a different world. And if insurance is going to decline, like we have to change with the times, right? Okay, so there's a problem, and I kind of talked about it a little bit. Number one is PTs have a disconnect with the community at large. I mean, we do. We do a great job, but people don't know what we do. How many of you, and this is not to isolate, but how many of you have a practice? How many of you own a practice? Okay, fantastic. Shout outs to all the practice owners. All right. Is it direct, can I ask you something? How many of you use direct marketing? Meaning that you don't rely on physicians as, okay, Jerry, I already know you're good. All right, so this is the problem. The problem is that people don't really know what it is that we do. How many times, okay, how many are physical therapists and then, yeah, licensed physical therapists, raise your hand. Okay, and then how many students we got in the room? All right, so this is the licensed physical therapist now. Students, give yourself a shot. Here, come on, give it up for the students. Give it up for the students. Okay, all right. So, physical therapists, I mean, how many times are you in a room with a patient and they say, I didn't know you did that, right? I mean, you feel me? Okay. So, you know, I used to kind of be like, man, that's like a, well, yes, I do that. You know, but honestly, that's a slap in the face to our profession. People don't know what we do. Now, in a lot of these groups that I frequent, along with Ben, Rich, and Brett, there's a lot of animosity, a lot of anger with not just the OGs, the old people in the profession, but the young ones that, oh, the chiropractor is doing this and they're doing that. It's because they have created an identity for themselves. And I personally believe we're so damn good, we're not good. Like, we have so many things that we offer, but no one really knows what it is that we do. We have an identity crisis. And we got to figure that out. We just aren't a trusted source for direct access as of yet. So that is our problem. We're talking about social media today. I'm telling you that as a practice owner, I had that problem as well. And this is how I fixed it, okay? This is just 3 ways that I fixed it. Guys, I just want to give you value today. I want you to take this back. If you're students, I want you to ingrain this in your head and figure it out, okay? So I only got like 15 minutes, so I'm just going to go through real quick. All right, blog website integration. So I want to kind of give you guys the background story to this. I was just telling a few of my students this earlier. Okay, so in 2007, right, I was about 50 pounds heavier than what I am now. I decided to use running to get myself back in shape, right? So I did a 5K, finished it, didn't die. It was absolutely amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you. Nearly died though. Nearly died. But what happened was this. This is a story, y'all. You know, I want you guys to understand this because people say, oh, Greg Todd, he says social media. Guys, I did not know what the hell I was doing. The story went like this. So I did the 5K, and then I did a 10K, and then I thought I was like Superman, and I decided to do a half marathon. Then I decided one day, I think I was, maybe I was drunk, I don't know, but I decided to sign up for the Disney Marathon. And I was so excited. I was passionate about it. I was excited. So when I'd come in on Monday, like if any of you have done a marathon, you know you do your long runs on the weekend. And like Monday, you want to talk about your long run. And I'm talking to my patients, oh, I did the long run and had my goo and everything's good. And apparently a doctor said, Greg, you worked with Mrs. Such and Such. I was like, yeah. He said, and you fixed her. I was like, I sure did. He said, but she said you talk too much about damn running. All right. Okay. So I decided to start a blog. Guys, I wasn't a social media genius back then. It was a way for me not to piss off Mrs. Such and Such. Right? So what happened is I started a blog, started talking about my running, right? Because I talk to myself a lot. This is blogging is another way of talking to yourself. So I started talking about my journey with running, right? I mean, that's what I did. And that's what I used the blog for. And people found me, and I found out that there's other forums that people like to talk about running, and I said, let me go find those forums, runnersworld.com, and then I started getting good at running, and I actually got a sponsorship by Brooks. Like, I actually went from little, chunky fat boy to like a good runner, right? And I started running 5Ks in under 19 minutes, and I started getting local sponsorships, and so now as I had this dream of qualifying for Boston Marathon. So I found this group, this is before Facebook, and I found this group that wanted to do the same thing, right? And so that's how I started my blog. In 2009, when I was getting ready to overhaul my website, My web developer told me that we get 10 times more action on my blog than we do on our physical therapy site. So let me tell you what I did. He said, let's bring your blog inside your site. Why? Because Google rewards a few things. It wants new content, right? So if, let's just say you want to learn how to, I don't know, y'all ladies do some acrylic or something, I don't know, like, paint your nails or something. If you want to learn that, you don't want to learn from somebody that did it in 2010, because that's old school. You want to learn 2017, how you do that acrylic stuff, whatever y'all do, right? You want to learn the new stuff. So that's what Google rewards. They reward new stuff. So if you have a blog and you are relevant and whatever you're talking about, it's new stuff, Google moves you up. We know Google's the #1 search engine. That's where everybody's at, right? They're looking for new material. And that's why it's a major key. So here's another thing. People are looking, they're not on the internet necessarily to find out about my running endeavors, but what they are on the internet is to find out how to solve a solution, a problem that they have. I mean, that's really what they're on. So it's like, hey, how do I fix, here, in my case, I'm good at social media now. I'm good at speaking, I think. But I suck at like taking care of my pool. Like, I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But so what I do is I go onto Google, like how to put that damn cleaner thing in. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to do it, right? So I personally prefer video because I'm really stupid, right? But basically, the way it works is that Google is gonna move your searches up based on how many words match up to what you're asking for. If you have a blog, you have this ability to tag. Put the keywords that are in whatever you're talking about inside your blog so people can find it easier, right? One of my students is like, when you pull up mentorship physical therapy, you flood the first page of Google. Yeah, because I understand this stuff. You can do the same thing for physical therapy, same thing. Now this is what I did. Once I started to realize this blog thing is really working, here's what I did. I started to blog about physical therapy conditions. And I shouldn't even say physical therapy. I started blogging about conditions. I worked with this girl on a WTA tour named Justine Hedden. What, bad? Is that bad? Is that cool? Okay. So, and then, but during that time that I was working on tour, one of the other players had arthroscopic rotator cuff repair. Okay? It's like in 2010 or something like that. And I ended up like working with her a little bit, but not too much. But anyways, I ended up doing a blog on her, on, having rotator cuff repair, because at that time, arthroscopic rotator cuff repair was not very common, okay? It was not common. So, when she made her comeback over 2 years, and she made it to the Wimbledon final, guess what happened to my blog? Take a guess. How many views did it get? How much? That day at the Wimbledon final, my blog, my website, my physical therapy website got 12,800 views in 2 hours. From something that every single one of y'all could have talked about. We all know the damn rotator cuff. If you don't know the rotator, you need to get the hell out of here. You go back to school and go learn because you're in trouble. All right, you're in trouble. You don't need to learn this. You got other issues. But that's what happened. Maria Sharapova, that's who it was. And every single year, she got busted for drugs the other day. So that blog ain't working anymore for me. But let me tell you what is working though. Let me tell you what is working. Derek Rose, you guys know who Derek Rose is? Those of you not watching? Okay. So Derek Rose tore his ACL. I'm a Miami Heat guy, okay? He tore his ACL the first year that LeBron and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade were together in the playoffs. Later on that day, a guy named Iman Shumpert from the New York Knicks tore his ACL that same day. I did a blog on ACLs. Guess what happened in Chicago? Guess what happened in Chicago? They all came to Grady's blog. Yeah. But see, guys, what I'm trying to tell you is that brings my ranking up in Google. That makes me the highest searched physical therapy site in my community. So my clinics stay totally busy. And every single practice owner in here knows that your biggest fear is what? having more customers, right? We already know what we're doing with physical therapy. The problem is we don't have enough customers. That's how I did it. All right, Google reviews. For those of you that are clinicians, have you had more, how many of you have had more than 50 patients say, "You've done such a wonderful job on me"? Go ahead, raise your hand. Okay, how many of, wait, no, keep your hand up. Just no, keep your hand. How many of you have 50 Google reviews? Yeah, damn it. See, that's the problem. Guys, I have 103 5-star Google reviews for my clinic. 54 for my other clinic. Let me ask you something. When you go to a restaurant, you go out tonight to a restaurant, and you're like, you know what? I want to try something else tonight. We're going to go outside of San Antonio. What are you going to do? Exactly. Gosh, y'all smart. Okay, next, Facebook. Y'all might not agree with me, but let me tell you how GT does it. I interact with my patients, medical providers, and local business owners in the community. I understand that I can't meet Rush every day. I can't. You're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. I can't meet physicians every day. I can't meet other business owners. But here's what we can do. I can like your stuff. I can comment when little Johnny gets that single in his game. And you're like, God, that Greg, he's such a nice boy. He's such a good, right? And you will use me again. My business page. Oh my gosh. How many of you are using Power Editor? Okay. I just changed your life today. I just changed your life. The Power Editor. Do you guys, okay, you guys understand this. When you signed up for Facebook and you said allow, you said accept, they got everything on you. They got everything on you, y'all. You said, Facebook, you have control of my life. Let me scroll. Because of that, as a bit, okay, now that sucks. But if you're a business owner, it's like the greatest thing in the world. I can market directly in my community to CrossFit, ages 21 to 27 that have had back problems, that have income between 65 and 95,000. Like any of you, that's what I'm saying, any of you coming out of school, if you wanted to start a practice, you could. You're going to have the customers, but you got to learn how to use these things. Use the Power Editor to effectively market to your community. Okay, and then the last one is YouTube. YouTube, for me, is my #1 channel. YouTube is the #2 search engine, but remember, I'm not that bright, and I can't learn things through written, but I can learn through video. If you show me how to put that damn pool thing in, just show me a video of it, I'll watch it 5 times and I'll figure it out. And that's how most people are nowadays. If you do a YouTube video, it will go to the top ranking in 155% like less time than a blog. So I use YouTube. And YouTube is where people are going to learn how to do things. So how many of you have found me on YouTube? Any of you have seen any of my YouTube videos? Okay. So you have to understand what my mission is now. I have videos to educate people on my skills as a clinician, not skills as in this, but my knowledge, because people don't know that we know as much as we know as physical therapists. That's priority #1 for me, because I'm just in a different place in my life. Priority #2 is to help the future of physical therapy. So the #1 search video on YouTube is, should you be a physical therapist? And that's a video that I did at my office. That video in 11 months has gotten 60,000 views. My YouTube channel, on the first page of YouTube, if you put in physical therapist, I have the #1, #4, #7, #13, and #15 video. That's great for me, but that says that we're not doing it. It's the best brand awareness for the profession to the community. So in conclusion, as you become a trusted medical provider on social media, it is quite easy to monetize and grow your practice using those spaces. Thank you very much.
Seats over here, guys. Anybody have 3 seats over here?
Seats over there. Plenty of seats over there.
Right here in the front. Right here in the front.
Come on down.
That's the hot spot.
All right. Okay, so can you guys hear me all right? Yeah. Because I don't use microphones too often. I've just a singer in my past life, so echoes in my ear. So we're gonna change gears a little bit, but not too differently. Talking about social media for the physical therapy academic and researcher, which is more where I'm in now. Going through a PhD program and teaching physical therapy students, but similar to what we mentioned in the previous two talks, it's this brand awareness, this engagement in the community. We have similar issues in academia and research as well. Ooh, wrong direction. Okay, we're good. So again, objectives, we'll talk about the traditional academic system for dissemination and publication and collaboration. Then we're getting to the evidence for the utilization of social media in academia and research, and then future directions and best practice recommendations. And we'll talk about some of the things I've done as an early academic, as well as some of the things we're doing with the journal, the cardiopulmonary section, and some exciting things we've done through social media. How many of you guys follow the cardiopulmonary Twitter account? Just wondering. Before the end of the session, follow at APTA CVP. So at APTA CVP, give it a good nice follow. We're booming with a lot of student memberships, follows. It's a great account. No bias there. Okay. So the current state of academia. How many of you guys are familiar with that analogy, the ivory tower of academia? It's a bit of a bad rap we get, and in some respects, though, it's not too inaccurate of reality. Picture here on the right here, on the side from Texas Tech, I think in like the 60s, but the prevailing mindset of academia and research are a bunch of old white guys sitting around a coffee table smoking pipes and looking over scholarly journals. And as we'll go into detail, again, this mindset that exists and some of the things like systemically in academia and how we share information, how we disseminate, causes some serious problems here, this insular nature. I liken it to a closed network or a closed loop. So in general, research papers are written by researchers to be read by other researchers. I can speak to this because I review papers, I write papers, I read a lot of papers. Papers are reviewed by fellow peers and fellow researchers, and they're published in scholarly journals, which are usually only accessible by individuals in similar peer groups. So, though many people may have access to their clinic or through the university, it's just this closed loop. It stays within other peer groups, okay? And that's notwithstanding the issues with funding and with formulation of research questions. It's the same people over and over and over again developing the questions, investigating these questions, publishing the findings, and then those who are reading them, okay? It's this closed loop. And then if you figure in the stakeholder process and who's involved in funding this research, it's taxpayers and other professional memberships. Okay, so other people are paying for these things, but not in many ways are not part of the process. So we'll talk about why that may be an issue and things we can solve through this, through social media, through more public action. So let me clarify. Before I get dragged out of here by my fellow academic colleagues, to clarify, I'm not here to just give a maelstrom and fire and brimstone against academia. I am an academic. I am a researcher. Okay, I'm here to offer some solutions that we can maybe improve our approach. I'm just here to completely debase academia and the publishing process, of which I am a member of. Okay, and fellow Philadelphian there, fellow Kevin Hart. But let's bear in mind here, there are some consequences of an insular academia. There really are some consequences here. I liken this to the analogy my father gave me, or a lesson my father gave me when I was fairly young, that if you have a role that you're supposed to be fulfilling, and you don't, someone else will. You might not like who they are. You might not like what they have to say. And that's the fact in really everything. I mean, think about it. If there's a void that's created, and you're supposed to be filling that void, someone else will. Okay, and it's no different in academia. Okay, we're sharing information and sharing knowledge that is produced in academic institutions. Okay, it allows people, like David Avocado Wolf, Food Babe, the old toxin stuff. Let knowledge together be our antitoxin. Okay? So talking about the knowledge gap, are you guys familiar with this concept at all? So knowledge gap is this issue that there's a large amount of knowledge and information that's produced, but there's an issue of getting that translated into practice and translated into the community. Okay? There's almost 30,000 scholarly journals that exist currently, which publish about 2.5 million articles per year. And Biomed is about almost over a journal a minute. So by the time we finish this talk, we'll have 120 journals published in that time. Over 1 million clinical trials to date. The knowledge base doubles every 10 to 15 years. Okay? So for clinicians, it's becoming incredibly difficult to stay up to date with what's being produced. If there's a large volume, there's limited access, the constraints of practice. How many of you guys are licensed physical therapists that have access to journals regularly? Yeah, not too many, compared to the amount of licensed providers. Okay, it's a big problem here. And if we're in academia, if we're producing knowledge, we have to address this. We have to address this. If we really want evidence-based practice, evidence-informed medicine to move forward, we got to change some things here. Okay. And clinicians, this is some research that's looked at both physical therapists as well as physicians and other providers. Some dedicate actual time to reading journals, 4.4. To keep up with the actual amount of journals that are published, that are the one per minute, you'd have to read thousands of journals in a day. So even though it is like the ideal time that most have available to them, the optimal time, it's still a huge disparity. And clinicians tend to read information in summary form. Many people may not even have 4 hours to spend in a week to read stuff. Okay, and they don't have time to read a full paper. So I can appreciate this. You have limited time, in clinic. If you're seeing 40 hours of patient care, maybe 20 patients a week. The last thing someone wants to do is sit down and read a paper that is in technical jargon by an academic. Okay, the last thing someone probably wants to do. Okay? And 25% of clinicians use social media to find research information. I can speak to this. How many of you guys follow Twitter handles for different journals or different research societies? I do. Right? And it's getting better now. More journals are kind of getting it a little bit and meeting people where they're going to. It's a reoccurring theme. You got to go where people are going to and produce information that's consumable for them. Okay? And the majority of PTs have a positive opinion about evidence-based practice, evidence-informed medicine. There's a want here. And again, it's not being fulfilled. Okay? You have some barriers to research consumptions. The wall from Game of Thrones. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a really corny sense of humor, so it'll manifest later as we go on. And my students are probably chuckling at that because it's absolutely true. All right. So again, frequently reported barriers: lack of time, lack of access, paywalls, lack of interest. Again, tying into that, how are these papers being written? How are they being reviewed? Okay, and the lack of generalization of some of our studies. Translational medicine is getting better and better, using more observational trials, but there's still a huge need for this. And again, speaking to that large volume, lack of a systematic approach to determining what is relevant in this large, massive research, it creates these disparities. And thousands and thousands of articles you'd have to read per day to keep current with what's being produced. Okay? And I think we as academics and researchers can make a process here to make more synthesized approaches to address this gap in knowledge. So, what's the evidence on improving evidence-based practice? So there's actually a great study that came out by Tunnicliffe in 2016, a pretty recent study, that looked at using Twitter and Facebook to promote behavior change in a group of physical therapists. Okay? The key points they highlighted were kind of what you would expect. They used a short course of practice points that were serially tweeted out over a 2-week period. So a little bit of bites of information that linked to a larger supplement of information that was open access. Okay, so giving up people a little bit of a hook they're looking for something short, and then providing the backup if they want to go a little bit further in depth. Okay, and having that systematic approach of frequently delivering information, so in a place and in a format that people can consume and access. So access, consumability, translation. Okay, and the course, which I think is huge, was designed by not only just researchers, okay, educators and other clinicians, all stakeholders involved. We're all our profession's keepers here. Okay, it's not just us in academia in the ivory tower. You got to engage everybody. Okay. So that's all well and good, and it's good to help society and stuff. But as a researcher, your career is really dependent on the impact of your publications and the number of them, your citations, how many times they're cited, extramural funding or grant funding, especially if you're a tenure track position or rank and tenure. So these are all things that are all well and good, but how can social media really help you with this? And I will highlight some examples as it absolutely can. It's something you need to be doing. So collaboration. More and more research are realizing now that it's really important to collaborate. Funding's becoming more and more scarce. How many of you guys in this audience are researchers and academics and publish frequently? And we can speak to grant funding is drying up in many areas. It's getting harder and harder to find grants. Collaboration is huge. Okay? And there's been studies that look at this. Okay? It was published in Nature recently. Common purposes, finding peers, discussing published work, posting content, and then discussing recommended papers. And then Twitter, as with physical therapy, is incredibly common among academics. I can speak for myself. I'm still in probably the development stages of becoming an academic and a researcher. And the opportunities I've had to have invited talks to different universities, to be invited to write certain papers, to review certain papers, a lot of this come from this connections I've established through my social media presence. Like my CV, if you looked on PubMed, probably in next week will have 2 papers, okay? But the impact I've had, ahead of that has influenced my ability to do things that people with maybe 10, 15 publications wouldn't be able to do. Okay, so something to think about. And kind of speaking to what Brett had mentioned about following up, I can speak to this earlier on in my career. You go to a conference, maybe you meet someone, maybe you go to a lecture, and maybe you shoot an email to somebody, but there's that long period between conferences. CSM's a year apart, right? This allows for a constant discourse and dialogue between people in other institutions, so it really strengthens that connection between people in different institutions, other colleagues. Okay? So, again, probably the coin of the realm in academia are tweets, posts, or citations and publications. Articles that are highly tweeted, especially in the first few days when they come out, are more likely to be cited. And that makes sense. Like, if people see your paper, they're going to read it. And if other academics are on social media, they're going to read it. Maybe they think of something that's interesting and they cite it. Or they lead to another question. It's opening this inquiry and allowing people to have different lenses look over it. It leads to discussion. Okay? It leads to a higher prevalence of people going to the website. And we'll talk about this in a second, but publishing in some respects, a lot of it's driven by there's financial interest for the journal, for the publisher. They would love for their papers to be published and read, not just by researchers, by a broad audience that drives traffic to their website. There's a metric here which kind of describes this. You publish something interesting, newsworthy. You'll directly get citations by other scientists who maybe get a notification from it. But if you get social media buzz, public attention, it may also lead to social change, which is good, but it may also lead to citations. Okay? So you're generating this buzz. How many times do you look at the New York Times? I can speak to myself. We'll be like, oh, scientists have discovered this, or a new study demonstrates that tart cherry juice prevents heart disease or something like that. And then you go and look at the original source. And you read the lineage of work by that researcher. It's just this constant circle of developing attention, which drives citations, attention, which drives viewership, which drives citations. And journals are adapting this. Are you guys familiar with this figure next to journals? Seen that before? So this is called altmetric. Okay, so journals are waking up to this idea that we need to start tracking like where our papers are going and ranking papers based on their social impact. So altmetric is a weighted approximation of social impact by looking at where things are posted in the news, on Reddit even, YouTube, Wikipedia, Facebook, measuring the social impact. Because again, if you have a paper that's highly cited, getting a lot of public attention, it's being read by a broader audience, more people are going to their website. Okay, so you're making, like you're doing well not only for your paper, but you're doing well for the journal. Okay, you might, that may lead to not only your paper having a higher impact, but you being invited to, maybe write editorial or have other opportunities with other journals because your papers carry so much more weight. Okay, it's extending beyond just, the closed loop of academia. It's getting out to everybody. And physical therapy journals are doing this too. This is a snapshot from JOSPT, the heel pain and CPG, and we're measuring it here as well. So we're doing this. And if you're an academic and not engaging in Twitter and building your own presence, you're going to kind of fall behind in a certain sense, because the journals are realizing this and moving towards that direction themselves. So we'll talk a bit about some future directions that a lot of entities have made, publication, funding, and government policy. Are you guys familiar with PeerJ or PLOS? Yeah, so these are open access publications. And they're becoming more and more popular. Everything is open access. Now there's some rap against them. Well, they publish so many papers, the impact factor is low. I'd rather publish in a more prestigious journal because it's going to carry a bigger weight. Also bear in mind that the impact factor is on everything with a publication. Nature, for example, refused a Krebs cycle because in 1937 when it was first submitted. So I would liken a paper that more people are going to read. And this is becoming more and more common. PeerJ, you pay a subscription and your publication fees are waived. Instead of paying $1,000 for a publication to make it open access, you pay a one-time annual subscription. So we're moving in this direction, and more people are publishing in these journals. Okay, and then extramural funding. It's a site called experiment.com, which I would welcome you guys to check out. It's really, really fascinating. You guys are familiar with, what's the website? Crowdsourcing website with it. GoFundMe? Yeah, GoFundMe. A Kickstarter. It's essentially Kickstarter for research. So people can post interesting questions they want to investigate and share it amongst people, and the population abroad can choose what they want to fund directly. So instead of going through a grant funding agency and going through that process, there's still a review process, there's still a rigorous review of what's if it's relevant or a good study, but it allows people to directly be involved in the process. Okay, and along that process, information is shared with the public. So you get little reports, as the research progresses, you get a summary finding at the end. Again, involving all the stakeholders. Because right now, you guys are all paying for NIH research, right? But do you get an update that's regularly pushed to your email? No. You have to dig for that a little bit. This gets everybody involved, okay? And they've funded over 675 projects. This is becoming more and more popular. And if you have a social media presence, people know who you are. If you share your project through the site, it's more likely to be funded. So again, we're moving towards this direction. And I can speak to this as well, because my mentor is a pretty prolific grant writer. There's no overhead taken by the university for your grant coming in either. It goes directly to you. Something to think about as well. Okay? So, Mayo Clinic, which is probably one of the greatest institutions in the world, has realized the importance of social media impacts for their clinicians and clinician educators. Recently in October, they added social media presence to their rank and tenure. So other institutions are kind of waking up to the importance of having their academics, having their researchers, having their clinicians being engaged publicly. And the quote here is great. As clinician educators, our job is not to create knowledge obscura trapped in ivory towers and only accessible to the enlightened. The knowledge we create and manage needs to impact our communities. And that speaks to exactly what we kind of need to do systemically through academia, being more engaged. So they added social media impact to their progression for rank and tenure. They also have a service, the Mayo Clinic Social Media Network, which trains academics on how to create an academic social media footprint. So if you're interested, I would check this out. Mayo Clinic's doing some really awesome stuff. And then exciting news from Europe. This came out in May. In Europe, they're attempting to mandate every journal published in Europe to be open access. Okay, by 2020. I don't know if that's going to happen here, but it's exciting news. We're moving in this direction, and if information becomes more accessible and rank and tenure is being more social media is being influenced more into rank and tenure, if you're not keeping up with this, you're going to fall behind. Okay, so best practice recommendations. So how many of you guys are on ResearchGate or familiar with ResearchGate? And Academia.edu is another one. So these are social media sites more geared towards academics. I'm not going to talk a bit about those because, again, our recurring theme is to how to be engaged within the community. But these are great sites as well. Okay. So Twitter. So Twitter for academics, probably the best platform for rapid discussion and collaboration and interchange. You'll probably more often encounter discussions with scientists. So if you are a researcher and want to talk with other researchers, you're probably your best bet's to go through this platform. The cons are that tweets can kind of be a hit or miss. Like if you hit something during a low traffic time, people might not see it. And there's no edit button, which is a thing I wish they added, because there's so many things I wish I could go back and spell check or not make myself look like a complete moron or something. But and limited to 140 characters. We've done this through the cardiopulmonary section, and we've seen a large surge in our follows, and we've also seen concomitantly a large increase in membership. This is, again, just kind of speaking to the importance of having an active brand on social media, controlling your image to be what it is publicly, as you have designed for yourself. So, along the lines of Twitter, there's these Twitter-based journal clubs, which are these scheduled times on Twitter where people will discuss an article or discuss a topic based on a hashtag. This is great because it increases the exposure by sometimes in the millions of figures. Okay, journals with active profiles often tend to have high impact factors as well. So if you can create a large audience around your journal through a Twitter account by using this, the papers that you produce will be read more often. Okay. As an example, in each month afterwards, you see this larger and larger impression per tweet from these journals. And this is a quick thing you can do. And again, it engages people publicly because anyone with a Twitter account can jump onto this journal club and follow it. It's awesome. Okay? There's an example from one that I participated in called Heart JC, or Heart Journal Club, which is done by Open Heart, which is an open access journal, like the British Medical Journal. This was crazy, actually. So it was about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and sudden cardiac death. And you get 70 million impressions in one chat. Sorry, let me back up. This was between May and October, discussing Heart Journal Club. One of the conversations I was in was about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And a lot of cardiologists, a lot of exercise physiologists were talking about it. And out of the blue, this advocate who was, I think, like a former Miss America pageant winner or runner-up, jumped in because she had this condition. The impressions for this talk just grew dramatically because she was this huge public figure. But this was only possible because it was on an open source format. And again, it engaged the public, it engaged the community, because we did it through social media. We didn't just do it in a closed room, in our conference room, in our institution. It's open. And there's Soft PT. We have similar things as well. This is not necessarily a journal club, but it's it's a hashtag that probably most PTs follow this to get updates for things pertaining to practice and PT. And we've made a pretty good impression here. This is that similar time frame between May and October, about 5 million impressions. You can see some popular journals here, the things you would expect. Mike Reingold, Karen Litzy, WebPT, myself, not too bad, Jerry Durham if he's still here. So this is a pretty decent audience over a few months. But Similar to academia at large, where we see this insular nature, I think in many respects our profession is very insular. I think we're very good at like sharing things amongst ourselves and demonstrating our proficiencies between other PTs. But that's important. It's important to have collaboration, having professional success. But how does that translate into practice? And this is demonstrated by the simpler analysis, which looks at social media impressions for different topics. So Solve PT, we're about 5 million. If you did a similar analysis for back pain, similar time period, 193 million impressions. Not a single PT during the same time period as all these other talks, Solve PT, which is great PT conversations, not a single PT is listed here as top 10 for any of these categories. So again, speaking to people are looking for answers, looking for solutions, and we're not meeting them where they're going to. And all it would really take is for a PT to, even if they are including hashtag SolvePT, include hashtag back pain in your tweets. Imagine if more of us did this and retweeted things, engaged in conversations, inserted ourselves into these conversations. Imagine how much we could control our image as providers, as researchers, as well as provide information to patients and to change society. Facebook, probably one of the most utilized platforms. They talked about this previously. How many of you guys are familiar with this guy here in the upper left? Brett Contreras, the glue duck. Facebook posts have a pretty good staying power. A lot more people use it. Brett Contreras had a huge following as a strength coach and personal trainer. Probably thousands and thousands of followers. He then went into a PhD. The audience he had with him prior to going to academia carried with him. So now when he publishes a paper, he gets thousands of views, thousands of shares, because he already had this kind of front-loaded audience. Now imagine what you could do as an academic yourself by building an audience, and your papers will just get more and more read. Same thing with BGSM. They probably do the best at engaging the public through their work. They've got a great blog, they've got a great Facebook profile page, they've got a great Twitter account as well, and a great podcast. Okay? Podcasts are great. How many of you guys listen to podcasts regularly? How many of you guys prefer podcasts to reading journals? Be honest. Myself included. So they're great because they can push content directly to users. Most of you guys have a podcast function on your phone. Listening is a little bit easier than reading summary, a full paper. You get summary findings, and generally there's no paywall. I mean, our podcast is completely free, and most podcasts for most PT journals or scholarly journals are free as well. The cons, these take a little bit more time to ramp up. So Twitter and Facebook, usually your accounts can grow a little bit faster. Podcasts usually take a little bit longer, and there's less opportunity for direct interaction with your audience and other platforms. But like we had mentioned in these other sessions, you use both. Okay. YouTube channels are great, provides audio and visual content. New England Journal of Medicine has a great one. Of course, BGSM has a great one as well. Staying power, easily shared, can be integrated with other platforms. But similar to podcasts, it requires a little bit more startup time, and the comment section in YouTube is probably like the seventh circle of hell. It's like I really can't believe some of the things people say to each other on there. So it might be good to keep those comments muted if you post a video. Blogs are great. Staying power integrates well with other platforms. You can serve it as a launch pad to your other social media platforms. Publishes synthesized data into a published format. We're doing this with the journal as well. Praising cardiopulmonary topics, making it consumable for researchers. British Medical Journal has probably one of the greatest blogs in the world on this. They have a lot of their regular high-impact publishers write blogs for them. It's great. The cons, of course, you still have to read it, but again, it's usually in a summary format and usually more consumable. So I'll wrap it up with this. I'll never forget the first CSM I went to was in 2013 in San Diego, and it was in the research section, and I heard this quote that researchers are the gatekeepers of the profession. It's an interesting kind of descriptor there, gatekeepers. It makes me think of like the never-ending story where you if you can't get past like the gatekeeper, like you get obliterated or something like that if you're not pure of heart or something like that. Or the Black Knight from Monty Python, like this imposing figure. And I think some of that, if you look at how academia is established now, it's sort of like that. It's there's this almost this disconnect between the public, between researchers, and between clinicians. And I think it's began because there's this large amount of information, and it's hard for people to keep up. And we in academics, we want people to read our research, and we want people to perform evidence-based medicine, but we're not doing things to allow that to kind of be facilitated. Okay. And because of that, there may be a little bit of angst between each side, and that's not what it's about. It's about like working with each other. So I liken our role not as a gatekeeper, but more like Gandalf the White. Okay, we're just Gandalf in general. You're kind of a guide in a certain sense. Okay, you're wise, but everyone's part of the team, kind of like the Fellowship of the Ring. Okay, there's no one has a higher pecking order. You just have different skills, different talents. And the gate isn't it's not an ivory tower, but it's an open gate. Okay? So instead of being a gatekeeper, research and academics should be the guides and purveyors of information. We produce information. It's important to have that rigorously and scholastic side, but it's also important that our research is shared and disseminated between the community at large and with researchers who also share our information to individuals. And again, if we aren't fulfilling that need, and there's obviously a huge one because people want to practice evidence-based medicine, if we're not making journals accessible, if we're not making them available, if we're not making them consumable, we're going to keep falling into the same issues we have here, this void. And again, whoever may fill that void, we may not like what they have to say, we may not like who they are. And until we have a countering voice, it's going to stay the same. So I implore academics, I implore researchers, get involved in social media. It's really not that hard. There's things you can do, and it's almost like one of those analogies where you can't afford to not be on social media as an academic. And I can speak for myself that it's going to open opportunities for you more than you can probably imagine, more than just writing papers in good journals. Okay, if no one reads it, what's the impact of the journal? Okay, thank you.
Hey, we're trending on Twitter, y'all.
Wait.
Listen.
That didn't go well. All right, let's go more. We're trending on Twitter. So I'm closing this out, and hope my voice stays. My slides didn't like us, so I had to transfer it over and have some separate slide issue. So there. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. All right, this is one of the rare times I actually need this thing because my voice is pretty gone. All right, cool. So let's close this out. And you guys want to do a time because I really want to make sure we're out.
You're going to be in Brooklyn, like 4:30.
4:30. Yeah. Oh, cool. Let's chat. All right, guys. So let's talk about social media's business as influencer clinical practice and really how we really truly can transform society through social media. I mean, guys, Twitter is an international platform. We're trending. Wait, hold it. Who's live tweeting right now? Okay, well, hold up your hands. All right? This is a handful of people in the room is trending social PT. All right? If everybody in this room started a Twitter account and and started tweeting every session and everything you know about PT or just even APTA, CSM, then we'd be trending all week. But anyway. All right, as business. I don't know why, but when I hear like social media as business, I just think of this guy, not personal stuff, it's strictly business. And it's not like that. Business is really best seen as behaviors. It's a lot of human behaviors involved. And influencing, social media's influencer is also a behavioral concern and part of our lives. And all behaviors are relational. And that's what social media is all about. It's about meaningful connections. Wait, stop. I promised myself I'll do this. It is against the biological nature of physical therapy, folks, to sit down for 2 hours. Please stand up. Not to mention, I don't know why the screens are all over here, because these poor guys over here are doing, they're really stretching that 45 degrees. All right, dude, just hang out, sit when you're ready. These are big letters, we're good, right? But you know, relationship is all about connectivity. You have to be able to connect with each other. And I'll try to make sure that we do have time for questions. And the reality of social media as a business is that it's really a game. You know, it's social media. It's really just a game. It's data mining companies that mask it with a highly connective, highly addictive interface. Right? And I mean, how many of you guys have gone down that feed and you're just like, oh, there goes 30 minutes. I was supposed to study. You know, that kind of stuff. I was supposed to see a patient. That's like, oh, I'm late. We all know what happens. But really, guys, it's great for branding. It's great for social awareness, right? And in business, it's great for generating leads, finding your ideal customer, segmenting them out so you can have a unique message personalized for everybody, right? And it's wonderful for growth and for growing a community that has like-minded interests that can also be diverse, that is highly engaging. And really, it's best to be seen as a footprint. It's a digital footprint. Social media is part of that ecosystem, right? Everybody here talked about it. You have to have all of it, right? You have to have YouTube. You have to have a website. You have to have all these different things as components of that sphere of influence. Social media happens to be the most vocal of them. And that's why, hey guys, we're trending. I'm on a high. I saw that. I was clicking the things. I wonder if we're trending. What if we're trending? All of a sudden, I'm like, Greg, we're trending. And it's, like I said, it's an ecosystem, right? We've had a lot of talk about this. I'm not going to expand on it, but really to drive the point home, everything feeds on each other. You have to have a good understanding of how people find stuff, right? Because if we're going to transform society, people have to know we exist and know what we do through these channels. And that little windy thingy there, I usually call it, it's your synergy arrows. Content synergy. What you put out there on your blogs, on your YouTube, on your website, on your social platforms. All of us have to have some unison in voice to point to the same direction. Talk about that, ecosystem. So, social media is a business cycle. This is important for those of you that are practice owners. This is important for those of you that are managers. This is important for you that are thinking about starting a business. And quite honestly, it's important for all of us because we have to understand the behaviors of our healthcare consumers. And it has a business unit element to it, where you have a brand, you have a presence, you have content, you have traffic, you have audience, you have all these different elements that you might think of in a process. But the rule is this: regardless of how you're analyzing it from a business mindset, you always have to deliver value first. And that delivering value first really has to do with giving out great pieces of information. Entertaining, educational, engaging, free stuff that, I mean, you saw Rich's slide. Millions and millions of people want a solution to back pain, and we have it. And it's just honest to share. And then we can ask them nicely when they're ready. And everybody that has back pain or have had, you know it's there. It's like, okay, I'm ready. I need help. Right? Like I've had enough of this. And that's what we need to do for everything that we do. But really the secret in social media, when you're thinking as a business, whether it's, if you're part of an acute care team, or you're part of a home health agency, or you're part of private practice, or a larger enterprise concern, really what it is social media is your channel to bring your audience and connect that with their story. You become part of their story. I think I saw them tweeting. Where are my neuro gals? You were tweeting back there somewhere. There they are. Big shout out. We had a big talk down there on the exhibit floor about how powerful it would be if we were to share just our everyday wins, our victories, our patient victories when somebody was told, look, you're sorry, buddy, you're never walking again, right? How many times have we heard that? They walk out, right? You're never going to play tennis again. They win a tournament, right? All these things, these are daily wins that we see every single day, and how powerful would that be? Now, I do put this up here because it happens a lot where people try to use social media as business, and it didn't work for me. And just like anything else, there's a right way of using something, and there's a wrong way of using something. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's the technical aspect or if it's user error. And we've talked a lot of technical, applicable, actionable things today that you can take home and do. Now you know, right? You don't have to be Fry. Right? Technical errors, you got 20, I got 30. But really, when it comes to business and branding and connecting with your community and everything, like we've grown up as a culture, as a profession, thinking word of mouth. My community supports me because I support them. But what better way to reach your community than in the palm of their hand that everybody's using every day? Right? And this is just an example of one thing you can do. This is a live broadcast. This is an hour 20, 120,000 people reached. Imagine, right? Imagine if 10% of you guys in here is just like what Greg talked about with April. Imagine if we just shared. We shared our wins, right? Our family wins as physical therapy, as a physical therapy community, as physical therapists, as physical therapy assistants. Even I'm hoping there's some aides that are coming here too, because they're part of that community. And it's not to impress you. Right? This isn't like numbers to impress you. Those are normal numbers that anybody can get. All right? It doesn't require you to be a social media genius for you to have these massive numbers. It just requires you to be consistent and to share. Now, there's some pathways that are involved in that, and I didn't want to segment this out as influencer of this and business of that, because really it's all the same thing. Right? Being a clinical influencer and being a community influencer to promote physical therapy is really the same thing, because they go down the same path. You discover somebody, whether it's through the search bar or you have direct interest. Oh, I heard about this. Let me Google this technique. Right? Let me take a look at this name I've heard. Right? And then what you see in social media is everything in the back, the last slide over here. Right? You see all the reactions, all the comments, all the views. You see this all over the place. And that's social proof. That's where you see, right, you Yelp, you see 5 stars everywhere, you see the $1 sign makes you happy, and you go, I'm going there, right? Because that's social proof. That is all the people that you trust, even though you may not know them, you trust that at a reasonable level, they have rated something to be likable and trustworthy immediately. And as an influencer of clinical practice, it happens in many different ways. Virtual mentorship, private groups, public forums like the Solve PT chat, the DPT student hashtag, all these things. People will drop their ideas and share them and exchange them through social platforms, because it's so easy. Because we can do this from the comfort of anywhere. There's also that whole debate thing, but it's what I consider to be social media road rage, and try to avoid it. And don't dignify it, right? Because we don't want to show up publicly as if we're bickering amongst ourselves. We want to show up publicly that we are truly a united profession with diverse skill sets. Let's see, this thing is not liking me. So the discovery process typically happens like this. You have a happenstance where you scroll down something and you see, like, oh, interesting. And the mere exposure effect typically happens. Most people typically don't connect with, whether it's a clinic or a personal brand or learn about back pain. They don't connect with that issue right away. They see it for a glimpse of time. And in social cognition and social psychology, there's this thing called mere exposure. If you see something for just a blip of time and you see it later, there's this inexplicable draw to it in a favorable valence. It's actually a very powerful social media marketing tool. But the repeat exposure, the interest, the browsing, the absorption, the engagement, the buy-in, when people see this over and over and over again, how come Greg Todd has so many views? How come he has so many likes? This guy must have something important to say, right? How come New Grad Physical Therapy is just everywhere, with articles everywhere? How come Rich always posts something consistently to boggle our minds on Sunday? Right?
And Monday.
And Monday now, I don't know.
And Tuesday.
That's what we need. And imagine if all of us did it, right? The direct interest path, right? How do I fix my shoulder? Or how do I treat shoulder? Right? If you feel like you have something valuable to share with the community, share it. Blog about it, video it, share it on Facebook live stream, whatever it is, because your voice is valuable, more so than to us, but to the communities we serve, and they need to hear it. Right? And a lot of times they lurk around. Some of you today I saw already followed me back on Twitter, because you joined here and you're like, I'm gonna follow that guy up there, see what he has to say, right? And you're not probably gonna tweet right away, you're gonna lurk a little bit, and that's okay, you wanna feel the environment. It's a common Twitter thing, everybody goes, I don't know what to do on Twitter, I'm just lurking around. It's okay, right? But eventually you learn, you'll engage, right? You're gonna go, okay, I know how to use, I see how people are doing this. It's only 140 characters, I can handle this. But really what's cool is the inspiration, right? What's really cool is you'll see something, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, I mean, you can go down to like Pinterest, Tumblr, whatever platform it is, you'll see something. It'll inspire you. You know what's really cool? It's probably going to inspire somebody else if you share it. Right? How many of you have seen something on one of these social platforms, like just any given day, maybe a bad day, I don't know, you saw something, you're like, okay, that's it, that's the one. That has revived my day. Who has experienced that? Good amount of people, right? We talked about social proof, right? If you have followers, you have a growing number of them, and they're engaging, authentic, they comment all the time, and they either thank you or they go, wow, I didn't know, that blew my mind, all these different things, they like you all the time. That's authenticity, right? That's engaging. And if you seem to win a lot of arguments in the clinical spheres, right? Which I don't necessarily advocate for, but if you have compelling arguments, that's a win, right? If you get people to nod and go, yeah, that's a great, I'm going to try that. I'm going to go back to my clinic and try that technique that I saw on YouTube, or that I saw on Facebook, or I saw on Instagram or Snapchat. That's a win, because we're starting to open up the communication, and we're willing to try new things that we may not have even been exposed to, because we're so locked down in our own practices. And this is one of the best ways to pick other people's brains on things that we have all the opportunity to learn from. But being consistent is the hardest part, and that's the most important part. If you are consistent, though, then you're winning. Because a lot of the business research out there, if in marketing schools and MBA programs, what they have shown is that on social media, regardless of your intent, whether it's in business, in branding, in marketing, in sales, in human resources, in research, it doesn't really matter. If you are consistent, you will win. Because you are always going to be present. You always have a brand voice. You're not just posting here and there and anywhere else. You're not just sharing here, where everywhere else. You're always there, which means you're always accessible. And that's going to blow the minds of our communities. Wow, there's a physical therapist down there. And they're always accessible, always sharing things, always posting on something that I find useful on a day-to-day basis. There is a content refinement process in social media, and it happens all the time. As social media technology evolves, we have to, as users, evolve with it. But really, in the realm of clinical influencers, what happens is these influencers are still learning themselves. And they'll tell you that. And they're telling you, hey, I'm learning this too. I'm going to try this new thing. And you get a new psychosocial engagement where the next generation is propagated. We start raising our next leaders. And that part is very exciting to me. And it also legitimizes a novel or somewhat novel approach, whether it's blending or truly new. But really, when it comes to all of this, right, we've talked about things from a student perspective or a young professional in development. We've talked about it as a business owner, as a business in general, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business for that matter. We've talked about it in academics, but really the key to transforming society is building communities. Now, I know there's a lot of students here. How many of you are on the Doctor of Physical Therapy Facebook group? Whew, wow. How many of you, keep your hands up, how many of you felt that you've benefited from just being there? All right? That's just from being there. How many of you have actually posted? Post your hands down if you haven't posted there. A lot of you have, but they still benefited from it. All right, you can put your hands down. So really, it's about having this mindset that we're here to grow together, right? It's about this mindset that everybody has something valuable to say, because it's not our jobs to say it to each other. right? It's our jobs to say it loudly and publicly, like on Twitter, to get that trending. Right? When we own only 8% or 9%, 10%, whatever the most recent numbers and reports are of the musculoskeletal market, that means we have 90% opportunity to share with. And we have to. Because communities are built on all these things we talked about. But really, it's all about precise and purposeful content when you do it very consistently. And it's, and it's not that you have to be an expert of all things. Right? If you are great with shoulders, share about shoulders. If you're great with peds, share about peds. If you have a passion for neuro, share about neuro. If you love home health, share about home health. If you love travel PT, share about that. If you love human resources, share about that, whatever it is. But as you share it, you're sharing it as part of this physical therapy family, right? Hashtag PT fam. Right? And who read the last blog, right? Hashtag PT fam, promoting the what? The family win. Because when one of us wins on social media, all of us win. I guess I missed on my slide, but there is an element of virtual mentorship available for all levels of the profession, students or otherwise. There's plenty of virtual mentorship going on in multiple groups that are available because that's how we connect now. Because the mentor in my city may not be the one I want to connect with or the ones that are good matches for me, but the one across the country, that might be perfect. He or she might be wonderful. And quite honestly, it tends to be a little bit more affordable when you do things online than you do things in person, right? That's why we buy everything on Amazon. What's really cool too, it creates its own culture. And I know I've met a lot, I see a lot of familiar faces. I was going to challenge myself, I'm going to name out everybody I recognize, right? And I said, I'll feel bad if I miss somebody. But it's so cool because seriously, every single row sitting here, I recognize most of you, I know. I met on social media first, before I met you in person and shook your hands. Or gave you a hug because I'm from California, right? So, and that culture thing's so cool, all right? It's so cool because, we can skip that. That's the whole public train wreck when you fight each other online. And, there's that fun little meme I saw, I think it was back in 2014. It was 0, the number of Facebook debates that convinced me to switch political sides, right? How are we on time?
We're gonna have to discuss about 5 more.
You know what? Let's just go to the good stuff, right? In order to transform society, right, we have to be part of their conversation. The general public, our consumers, our customers, they are on social media, so we should be too, right? And there's no boundary of personal and professional. It's all one thing, right? You don't. At least I hope you don't walk into the door, of your clinic and go, hello there, sir. I am your physical therapist today. And then you leave and, I'm from California, so I'll be like, hey, dude, you want to go surf, bro? I hope you're not talking like that and acting and thinking like that. I hope it's all one consistent part. And to be members of the community would be so huge, right? If there's a local, parenting group, be part of that community. If there's a local interest in sports or running, be part of that community. And they're all online. You can Google every single one of them. But really, what the communities that we serve need to see is a profession that's united, right? And I think it's great to have some heated debates behind closed doors amongst our own peers. I think that's wonderful because I think it sharpens us. But I don't think it benefits anybody if we are shown to be publicly divergent from each other and disunified. And it's a blade that we have to temper. We are so good as a community in celebrating our diversity. We really, really are. Think about all the SIGs. Think about all the sections. Right? Think about all these different interests, all these different clinical approaches. For the most part, we get along. But we have yet to temper the other side of the blade. And we need to temper the strength and edge of diversity with the strength of unity. I just thought that was cool. So really, my challenge to you guys, right, is you've heard all these things from the 20,000-foot view to the granular, to the technical, to the humorous, to the cactus and people sleeping in classes. I was one of them. But really, my challenge to you is the same challenge I issued to myself this year. I challenged myself this year to try Instagram. It was actually a platform I'd never been on. I never had an interest of it, but I've challenged myself to learn it. because I know there is a reachable community there. I know there are people there that can benefit from perhaps the random thing I post. So wherever you are, if you are on one platform, get on two. If you're on all of them, teach somebody else. And share. I mean, gosh, guys, can you imagine that if everybody in this room went back to where, your homes, your clinics, your schools, and you got somebody else on and joined a new platform that you've never seen and committed to doing any number of the things that we've recommended, whether it's group sharing or you go on Facebook Live once a week and say, hey, look, this is my PT fan, or this is my physical therapy win of the week. I'm still learning as a student, I have permission to share this, and you won't believe what I saw this week. And you tell the patient's story, because it's all about them. It's all about us as a community, publicly united, serving communities to transform society. So go, transform.